Hello, this is the Tales History, and here is a new author's story from my channel, Real Life Stories. Zoya went up to the bedroom and collapsed on the bed face down into the pillow. Tears choked her, but crying out loud was frightening. Her enraged husband would surely come to comfort her in the cruelest way. Over the past few months, Jur had seemed to be a different person. At first, he was jealous. But then he started nitpicking every little thing and even raising his hands when he was in a particularly bad mood. To avoid provoking scandals, Zoya tried to stay out of sight. To keep from going crazy with boredom, she found a job on LinkedIn. But even this did not please her husband. "You think we don't have enough money?" he roared, seeing her bent over another order. "Before the wedding, we agreed you would stay home, look after the servants and keep yourself in order. And what do we have in the end? You're still a gray mouse." Zoya shuddered, remembering the first outbursts of anger from the once loving man. She became increasingly convinced that he had married her not out of love, but on a whim. Why not for a change? Take a simple nurse from the hospital as a wife. Hearing her husband slam the door as he left the house, she took out her smartphone. She needed to call Andrei, her psychologist from the crisis hotline, whom she had turned to after another scandal. Back then she was choking on sobs, searching the internet for quick and painless ways to end her life, but instead she found Andrei. Andrei listened patiently to her disjointed story about how she became the wife of a wealthy man. How she thoughtlessly left her beloved job and her parents' home in a small town to move into his luxurious mansion. At that time, Jur was captivated by Zoya's simplicity, modesty, and embarrassment with which she accepted his lavish gift. "Why did you do this, Gur? It must be incredibly expensive," Zoya would say. "A girl like you deserves so much more," he would reply, tearing up. Perhaps back then, Jur was genuinely infatuated with the nurse who could give painless injections and who had delivered him to the district hospital from the riverbank where he had gone fishing. Suddenly, he had a kidney colic attack and was writhing in pain on the beach sand. His frightened friends tried to put him in the car and take him to the hospital, but he couldn't even stand up. He was covered in cold sweat and moaning so terribly that they decided to call an ambulance. The paramedic injected the pale man and took him to the district hospital. That's where Jur saw Zoya for the first time, a slender, tanned, muscular man, yet so exhausted by pain that he didn't have the strength to be embarrassed by the young nurse's touch as she skillfully inserted needles and catheters. A few days later, when he was feeling better, Gur looked Zoya straight in the eyes and asked, "So, beauty, will you come with me to the big city?" Caught off guard, Zoya could only ask, "Excuse me, Gur, but in what capacity would I go?" Gur laughed heartily. "Certainly not as a personal nurse." Then he hugged her so tightly that it took her breath away and kissed her forehead. "I'll marry you. Do you want to?" Zoya dialed the psychologist's number and, as the phone rang, wondered how to phrase her question. Andrei's always cheerful voice startled her a bit. "Hello, Zoya. Good evening. Don't worry, you haven't bothered me at all. This is my job to solve problems together with clients. So what important question do you need to discuss?" "Well, if you remember my situation, my husband's aggression is getting out of hand. If before he would just raise his hand now. We were at an exhibition, and he called me insignificant and said the original painting was worth more than my entire hometown." Remembering the quiet streets of her childhood, the familiar smell of the hospital, and her parents' sad eyes, Zoya started crying again. Back then, a couple of years ago, she spent almost the entire workday on her feet, earning a modest salary, but that life was familiar and understandable to her. Here, among her husband's wealthy relatives and friends, she felt like a complete outsider. "Zoya, let's get to the point. You wanted to discuss an important question with me," Andrei tried to calm his client. "I'm sorry, it's just that the memories are still too fresh." I jokingly told him that I wouldn't give a ruble for such a daub, and he, in front of everyone, attacked me with curses, called me a stupid chicken, and almost kicked me out of the exhibition. I have never felt so crushed. She sobbed but finished her thought. Now I'm sure he never loved me. It was just a whim, another adventure. So there's no point in living with him anymore. Andrei was silent for a moment. Unfortunately, Zoya, I had a case where a businessman deliberately fed his wife delicacies because he was interested in how quickly she would turn into a plump woman and what sizes she would reach. The poor woman suffered from such obesity that she could barely move around the house. She turned to me, and we solved this problem with great effort. I had to convince her to leave her crazy husband, and she did. She quickly got back in shape and married a simple, normal man. Zoe shook her head as if Andrei could see her. That's what I'm thinking too. I shouldn't have chased after his beauty and wealth. I should have found someone in my hometown. But you see, my parents raised me strictly, teaching me that a wife must endure everything and never let family relations lead to divorce. They are believers, you understand it. So when I told them I was marrying a rich man and moving to another city, my mother said, "Remember, you chose this without our parental blessing. So you must endure it yourself. If I divorce Jur, I will have nowhere to go." Andrei asked, "Don't you have any friends in our city?" "No," she sighed. "I never worked. I only recently started writing medical texts online. I can't just sit around doing nothing, and I don't want to lose my knowledge. In high society, Gur's circle doesn't accept me as one of their own." Andrei was silent again, then said, "You know, the crisis hotline is not our only project. We have a special center for former housewives who have nowhere to go. They provide psychological help, job training if needed, and even help find affordable rental housing. If you decide to leave your husband, I can sign you up for this center and tell you how to get there." "Thank you, Andrei." "I will definitely think about it," Zoya said, but suddenly she felt someone's heavy hand grab her hair from behind. Jur had entered the bedroom unnoticed while she was talking to the psychologist. He overheard the last phrase and flew into a rage. "Andrei, you say?" he shouted, pulling her back by her hair. "So this is who you spend your free time with instead of going to the store or the beauty salon like normal women?" He grabbed the smartphone and threw it forcefully onto the floor. Zoya retreated to a corner of the room and grabbed a Chinese vase standing there. "Don't come any closer or I'll smash your head in," she threatened. "Andrei is my psychologist. You drove me to the point where I needed a specialist," she added, glaring angrily at her husband. "So that's how it is," Gur sneered. "Living in my house on my money. You have the nerve to complain about your life to some stranger." He took a step toward Zoya, but she threateningly raised the vase again. "It's over, Jur. I dreamed of a big, happy family with children and grandchildren in the future, but you never loved me. I was just your entertainment, a whim. You shouldn't have married me at all." "Well, how could I not marry you?" Gur laughed. "You were so in love with me, your eyes were shining. And I felt sorry for you, fool. I thought I could make a person out of you, a real lady, but you can't get out of your poor habits. You're worthless." Gur turned to leave but then noticed that the screen of the phone lying on the floor was still lit up. He bent down, grabbed the device, and shouted, "Hey, psychologist, I'll find out where you live and finish you off." Satisfied with the effect he had on his wife, he left the room. From the hallway, he casually added, "I'll file for divorce myself. You don't need to worry." Zoya slumped to the floor, carefully set the vase aside, and then reached for the smartphone. Andrei was still on the line. "Are you there?" she asked softly. "Yes, I heard everything," Andrei said, and Zoya felt that during those few terrifying minutes of her husband's presence, she had missed the psychologist's gentle, calming voice. "I'm so glad you're okay," she said, her voice trembling. "Thank you. I'm glad too," Andrei replied. Zoe took a deep breath and said, "I'm ready. Please sign me up for your center. It looks like I'll be getting a divorce soon." "Of course," Andrei promised. "I'll stay in touch. Take care of yourself." A few days later, Zoya received a summons to court. By that time, she had already packed her things in a travel bag and was preparing to move out. In court, Zoya was shocked, but the sight explained her husband's cruel behavior. He appeared in the courtroom with a young woman dressed so provocatively that Zoya's parents would have been mortified. The woman triumphantly glanced at Jur's wife, repeatedly pressing her bare shoulders against him. Zoya heard, as if in a dream, that Jur's house was not considered their joint property. Therefore, she would not receive any part of it after the divorce. Moreover, after the court session, Jur approached her and almost threw an obviously used phone at her with a sarcastic laugh. "Here, use this. You'll definitely need a psychologist now, hysteric," he said. At first, Zoya didn't want to take the farewell gift, but then she remembered that she needed to contact Andrei to find out the address of the support center. When she put the device in her bag, Jur chuckled. "Go ahead, call your cripple. He'll surely help you," he sneered. Zoe turned around in shock. "What cripple? What are you talking about?" "That Andrei, your psychologist, is an ordinary wheelchair-bound man," Jur said, leading his companion away. Zoe felt a sudden realization like a flash in her mind. Her hands clenched into fists, and she shouted, "Stop." She caught up with the couple and grabbed Jur by the shoulder. "You went to the crisis hotline office?" she demanded. "Yes, I went," Jur admitted. "I wanted to teach your Andrei a lesson for you, but when I saw him, I didn't want to dirty my hands. I'm not that much of a scoundrel." Zoya was speechless. Her caring psychologist, her wise and understanding Andrei, with his wonderful voice that warmed her heart and gave her hope for a better future, was seriously ill. She decided she had to see him immediately. The address was on the website, so within a few minutes, Zoya was opening the heavy door of the institution where the crisis hotline office was located on the first floor. She asked the administrator for Andrei and walked through a small hall divided into cubicles where operators sat. Some were clearly bored, while others were engaged in serious conversations with clients. Andrei was also busy. No, Sophia, no," he was saying to someone. "Your suspicions are not enough grounds for a divorce. Everything might not be as bad as your imagination paints it." Zoya realized he was trying to convince another client not to divorce and sighed heavily. If only Gur had loved her a little, she would have done anything to stay with him forever. At that moment, Andrei ended the call, took off his headphones, and looked in Zoya's direction with a slight squint. "Young lady, are you here to see me?" he asked. Zoe approached him and said softly, "Hello, I'm Zoya. We spoke on the phone." "I remember you," Andrei said, pressing a button on his wheelchair to move away from the computer desk. Zoya saw that his motionless legs were covered with a warm blanket and gasped. "That's the reaction I usually get," Andrei said with a smile and moved back to his workspace. "So why did you come here?" "Andrei, when my husband said he wanted to beat you up, I was terrified. He has a very heavy hand and no restraint. I was sure he had injured you, so I decided to come here," Zoya explained, her voice trembling. "As you can see, I'm fine," Andrei said sadly. "At least no more than life has already injured me." Zoya didn't know what to say next, but she didn't want to leave. Andrei had a simple yet inviting appearance, and his voice seemed to penetrate her soul. She wanted to stand there and listen to him forever. "Forgive me for asking, but why doesn't your management let you work from home? Isn't it inconvenient for you to come to the office every day?" she asked. "On the contrary," Andrei replied calmly. "It's too noisy at home, and conversations with clients require concentration." "And who makes noise at your home?" Zoe asked, feeling that she was asking too many questions. "The neighbors." "I live in a communal apartment," Andrei said. "Don't you have your own place?" Zoe asked sympathetically. "I'm still waiting for the government to provide me with some kind of apartment. I'm not from an orphanage. I'm luckier than others. My parents and 2 brothers died in a terrible car accident, and I got away with just a spinal injury. So you could say I'm a favorite of fate," Andrei said, his eyes shining with tears. Zoya looked at the handsome young man who had lost his entire family and was confined to a wheelchair, and she felt immense admiration for him. He had been through so much, yet there was no despair or bitterness in his eyes. His voice was always calm and reassuring, and his smile was genuine and heartfelt. Andrei, Zoya said shrilly, I suddenly feel like a spoiled girl. I took up so much of your time complaining about my life when I could have handled my problems on my own. If you hadn't taken up my time, I wouldn't have had any clients to work with. Our management keeps a close eye on our productivity, Andrei said with a smile. They're not tyrants, they just know how to value time. And by the way, it's thanks to them that I became a psychologist. They helped me get the education, gave me a job, and found me a room in this communal apartment. Just then, their conversation was interrupted by a phone call for Andrei. Zoya decided it was time to leave and think about her next steps. She couldn't go back to her strict parents, and the prices for short-term rentals were shockingly high. She found a list of long-term rentals and realized that all her savings would go toward the deposit. Finally, she found an ad for a tiny room in a communal apartment near the crisis hotline office. The price was surprisingly low, so Zoya called immediately. The apartment was available because the previous tenants had moved out. Zoya went to see the room and was taken aback by the strong smell of alcohol and old age. It was clear that the place hadn't been cleaned in decades. But she decided to take it anyway. She spent the rest of the day scrubbing and cleaning her new home until she was exhausted. She collapsed on the old couch, covered herself with her own blanket, and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Zoya went to the kitchen to make coffee and heard a strange creaking sound in the hallway. The front door opened, and a wheelchair rolled out of the apartment. She peeked out and gasped in surprise. "Andrei, what are you doing here?" she exclaimed. "I rented a room here yesterday," Andrei said with a smile. "I had no idea you lived here too. But I'm glad to have you as a neighbor." Zoya was speechless. She had never imagined that she would end up living in the same apartment as her psychologist. Andrei seemed equally surprised but pleased. "I have to go to work now, but I'll see you later," he said, pressing a button on his wheelchair to move toward the elevator. Zoya watched him go, still in shock. She had so many questions and feelings swirling inside her, but she knew that this was a sign that her life was about to change for the better. That evening, Andrei returned home to find a delicious meal waiting for him. Zoya had spent the day cleaning the kitchen and cooking, and she was eager to share her culinary creations with her new neighbor. They sat down to eat together, and Andrei couldn't help but compliment her cooking skills. "This is the best meal I've had in a long time," he said, savoring every bite. "Thank you, Zoya." "You're welcome," she replied, blushing slightly. "I'm glad you liked it." As they finished their meal, Andrei asked Zoya if she had visited the support center yet. She admitted that she hadn't, partly because she was still processing everything that had happened and partly because she was enjoying her newfound independence. "I understand," Andrei said. "Take your time and do what feels right for you. But remember, the center is there to help you whenever you're ready." Zoya nodded, grateful for his support. She looked at Andrei, who was gazing out the window, and noticed the slight blush on his cheeks. She realized that he was just as nervous and uncertain as she was, and it made her heart swell with affection for him. "Andrei," she said softly, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to be nervous around me. I care about you, and I want to be here for you just as you've been there for me." Andrei turned to face her. His eyes filled with emotion. "Zoya, I don't know what to say. I never expected to find someone like you, someone who understands me and accepts me for who I am." Zoya smiled and took his hand in hers. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I'm here for you no matter what." As the days turned into weeks, Zoya and Andrei grew closer, sharing meals, conversations, and laughter. They supported each other through the ups and downs of life, and their bond deepened with each passing day. Zoya found herself falling in love with Andrei, not just for his kindness and intelligence, but also for his strength and resilience in the face of adversity. One day, as they were sitting together in the living room, Andrei turned to Zoya and said, "Zoya, I need to tell you something. I've been offered a new experimental treatment that could help me walk again. It's still in the early stages, but the doctors are optimistic about my chances." Zoya's eyes widened in surprise and excitement. "Andre, that's amazing news. I'm so happy for you." "But there's a catch," he said, his expression turning serious. "The treatment is expensive, and I don't know if I can afford it. I don't want to get your hopes up, but I had to tell you." Zoe took his hand and squeezed it tightly. "Andre, we'll find a way to make this happen. I believe in you, and I know that you can overcome any obstacle. We'll face this challenge together, just like we faced everything else." Touched by her unwavering support, Andre leaned in and kissed Zoya gently on the lips. It was a moment of pure happiness and love, a testament to the strength of their bond and the bright future that lay ahead. As they continued to navigate the ups and downs of life together, Zoya and Andre found solace and strength in each other's company. They supported each other through the challenges and celebrated the victories, always grateful for the love and friendship that had brought them together. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that whatever obstacles they might face, they would face them together hand in hand.